Hello everybody and welcome back to Tech Talks, the podcast where we say the worst opinions possible. As always, I'm joined by my co-host, Lord of Kirby.
Hello everybody! Yes, this is the podcast where we say dog shit opinions, specifically about one particular series.
And that particular series this time around is Paper Mario, but let's start with the original, Paper Mario 64. Wouldn't you agree with me when I say it's a solid game, right Kirby?
Yes. What this game does bad is honestly pretty passable by most RPG standards. It doesn't have a lot going for it, but in general, it's really solid and good what it wants to do.
I would fully agree. Sure, at its worst point, it's still a very solid passable, solid B or C for a game. Wouldn't you agree, Kirby?
I would say it's higher, but in general, this game is really good.
It's rock solid. Now, the Thousand Year Door and Super, however, those are a completely different boat. Wouldn't you agree?
Yes, definitely.
Now let's move over to the Thousand Year Door. A lot of people say it's the peak of the series, but regardless, it has a ton of flaws. Personally, I look past a lot of them. The Exonauts are incredibly underutilized. But let me turn this over to Kirby here.
Yeah, so people always talk about this one being the best of the best, which I think is complete and utter bullshit. This game, while being loved by many, has a lot of issues. It's kind of like Mario Sunshine, where...
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Where people love the game, but it's not all that great. Mario Sunshine, at least, is still a super fun game. Like, TTYD is fun, but, like, it definitely has some stupid moments, like Mario Sunshine.
Fair point. Like, look at the end. Look at our main antagonists for games, the Exonauts. They don't do anything. They appear in Chapter 2. That's the first time you fight them. Then, what's next? Chapter 5? Well... Granted, he was a spy, and then Chapter 7 when you storm their base, is that really all the times you see them? They're underutilized, well, wouldn't you agree?
Yes, it really is just Chapter 2 and basically 7. 5 doesn't really count because you only see them at the end, which doesn't mean anything.
Fair point. I will say, Bowser being a laughingstock was kind of hilarious for those intermissions, and the other ones were incredibly waste, especially with the Peach ones. Wouldn't you agree, Kirby?
Not fully agreeing about the Bowser point. I think the Bowser interludes are just dog shit. Like, nothing happens. I get that Bowser's not really, like, taking part in this game at all. But I don't know. I feel like it would have been better if we actually had a chapter where he had a role. Like, besides just being being the butt of every joke. Like, yeah, well, he appeared in Chapter 3 and then died immediately. But, like, I wish, for example... Chapter 5 had him as, like, the final thing you fight. Instead of Crump, which, by the way, is such a forgettable battle.
Yeah, I did forget about that fight. You only fight Crump, I believe, 4 times.
Yes.
You fight him once in Rogueport during the prologue, then again in Chapter 2, the time in Chapter 5, which I forgot about, and then in the Exonaut Fortress. That's about it for it.
What a stellar villain.
Now the Shadow Sirens. The fact that at the end it's supposed to be a twist that they were pulling the strings with Shadow Queen, I can't really tell whether or not they did that good of a job at foreshadowing that. What would you say, Kirby?
No, they didn't. There's like literally nothing saying otherwise besides Beldum being the one who gives Peach the map. Otherwise, they're like some of the most like underutilized parts of the game. Again, they only appear in like 3 chapters. Chapter 2, 4, and 8. And even in Chapter 4, they only appear in cutscenes.
Right.
Like Beldum and Marilyn just don't do anything.
Well, Vivian does join your party from the group.
Yes, but that doesn't really count because she's not fully a Shadow Siren once you grab her. She's just a party member. Like,
That's
just because she was a villain originally doesn't mean she's still a villain when she's in your party. It's kind of like Lackluster, where he joins your party after like trying to fight Mario, and then just like, okay, actually, Yes. Then you just fight him, and he's like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll join you.
I do want to say, I don't understand why they just changed the name from the Shadow Sirens to the Shadows in the remake.
Yeah, no, that's stupid. I don't know why they did that. Is Sirens that, like, bad of a name? Which I think the Free Shadow Sisters also were. Even though, you know.
Yeah, Vivian's trans. Everyone knows that at this point.
Yes, I know. But I'm saying, like, it's better than just the Free Shadows, which is the most boring name ever. And honestly, I don't think they really thought about that one too much.
As we know, the game is broke up into chapters. Well, let's see how exactly they did that portion. A lot of the chapters are weaker than the others. The game has TTYD has its solid highs, but its lows are lower than the core of the earth.
Yeah, TTYD is very sporadic when it comes to these chapters. They're either pretty good or utter dog shit. There is no in between. Like, the only one that I will say is like, yeah, that's a pretty good in between is like chapter 5? Because, like, it's not bad, but it's not good. I mean, I feel like another one is chapter 1, but chapter 1 is just so boring that I would still count it in the bad tier.
Well, first we had the prologue to go through. I would say that was a solid opening for the game.
It's solid, it barely exists though. I wouldn't even, like, blame somebody if they forgot prologue existed. Unlike Paper Mario 64, where the prologue took forever, it kind of just happens in TTYD.
Now, TTYD's Chapter 1, I want to say it's a solid start, but in reality, it kind of was boring. It was just really bland and generic.
Yeah, I don't like Chapter 1 of the original game. That one was just okay. But Chapter 1 of TTYD is just, there's just nothing. It's so boring. Which, by the way, one of my main issues with TTYD is the game just making you walk through the same rooms multiple times, which will become a recurring theme with the later chapters. But Chapter 1 really starts it off by making you walk through the exact same section back and forth. Like, why did they think it would be a good idea to put the entrance to Hooktail Castle at the start of the area? Like, yeah, it makes sense in the story sense, but, like, Jesus. You had to walk to Schwank Fortress and then walk all the way back, which is such a long walk for just, like, the main dungeon.
Well,
which is so boring. Which,
well,
by the way,
during your
might be the worst part of the game.
Well, during your first pass through of Pellbury, that's when you really do meet Koops, and it's not until after you get the keys from Schwank Fortress that you really get to meet Koops and he joins your party.
Well, yeah.
Granted, each of the chapters' main party members you really get their story just during that chapter, and it just stops there.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't expect them to do anything else. That's how 64 did it. I mean, 64 barely did it because 64's partners don't really have much story to them. The character who has the most story out of all of them is, I think, like, Sushi, I guess? I mean, Lackluster also, but, like...
Sushi was a babysitter, and Lackluster you actually fought.
Well, like, I'm talking about in the way of, like, they had to actually do something with the actual plot instead of you just collect them and that's it. Like, Sushi had you, like, you and Sushi had to go find, like, the kids.
Fair point.
So, like, I would say that he's, like, part of the story.
Well, at the very least, going back to Chapter 1s of TTYD, I have to say it had a more memorable boss rather than Discount Ninja Turtles in 64.
Well, yeah. But only because that one is a giant dragon. The Koopa Brothers are a way better fight. Hooktail is kind of boring because of the existence of Attack Effects R, which is one of the stupidest ideas ever. I don't know why they made it so you can just get an item to make the battle literally free, especially when they give you power mounts in the exact same chapter. Because Attack Effects, the whole Attack Effects R effect doesn't work with how many like attack commands you like press. AK, if you press Mario's like jump command twice, it's not 2. It's how many times the sound plays. So if you power bounce her and you land 5 jumps, she just has no attack. Which is stupid. Or I think it's actually 1 attack. But yeah, it's just stupid. I hate Tails.
Now on to the next chapter. Chapter 2.
Dog shit.
Yeah, that's the one word how I would describe it personally. The first chapter sure was bland, but at least it was okay. Chapter 2 was just a sudden nosedive into a ripoff of Pikmin, which granted Nintendo also owns. But you don't get to throw the Punies, despite how much easier that would have made half the chapter.
Chapter 2 is just so bad because they decided to go with a dumbass gimmick, which is like one of the biggest issues of TTYD. It just tries a bunch of shit and almost none of it sticks. The Punies in the original game were some of the worst things on the fucking planet. That AI is so bad. Sometimes they'll just leave you and just stand around the exact same room waiting for Mario. It's like, why did you stop following me?
They had the AI of Pikmin.
Yeah, the AI of Pikmin from Pikmin 1, aka the stupidest ones.
Yeah, they would carry an actual object right through water opposed to milling in place. At least Pikmin got smart over time. The Punies didn't.
They fixed it somewhat in T2ID Remake. Now they no longer get stuck on shit, but like, they're still bad.
This was also the first time you got to fight the X-Nauts or meet them in the game. Opposed to the interludes, of course.
Which this is their best chapter. Still not amazing though. Because your best chapter is also the worst chapter in the game. Nice one, guys.
Now, on to chapter 3. Now, this personally, I would say is my favorite chapter in the entire game. Everyone loves Glitzville, am I right?
It's good. I think the conditions are stupid. Some of them are cool. I like the idea of taking damage 5 times or like appealing to the audience. Those are cool. I like the idea of limiting yourself by having the battle last more turns. But what I don't find interesting is making it so your partner can't attack or you can't use hammer moves. These are just dumbass restrictions that do nothing besides make the battle last longer in like a stupid way.
In some cases, it probably even make the battle impossible if you think about it. The Armor Harriers, you need to use Yoshi in order to inhale one and throw back at the other.
You can't get anything that would make it impossible. You cannot get like no using FP or no using partners. You cannot get it on that. I think it's set in stone. Or at least in the remake it is. In the original, I know you cannot get those. But in the remake, I think it might be set to a specific one. I think it's appealing. Which is something you would obviously do anyways, because Mario can't do anything.
Right. Or at the very least you would guard or protect your Yoshi.
Yeah, but I like the idea of the conditions. If there were more of them that were like, okay, you're supposed to not like attack for a couple turns or whatever, then like yeah, because that makes the battle like way more interesting. Like the whole idea is you want to make the audience like more excited for the match, which I don't think making your partner not attack is like exciting, because you're literally just watching one of the main like fighters just stand there and do nothing. Yeah, Grubba, real interesting.
Yeah, and the fact that Grubba was, and in the end, Grubba was using the Crystal Star not as the champion's belt or the reward. He was just using it to, in a sense, get high off of to get himself an immense amount of power. Maybe using the term high isn't the best, but
he was using it to make himself eternally youth. Like, he made his appearance youthful with it. Which, by the way, Grubba is like the worst villain in the entire game. What a pointless character. The literal only good thing about him is the way he talks. Otherwise, he is just insufferable.
Yeah. Jolene as X, the character who is helping you get the Crystal Star, I liked that.
I like
personally.
Jolene.
Jolene.
I wish Jolene existed in the chapter more. Sometimes she just disappears from the plot, which is great. Right.
I mean, she
But,
later
like,
takes over control of the she later takes control of the Glitz Pit in order to make up for Grubba, and you can refight the Glitz Pit after Chapter 6. Not to mention, you can also do a Trouble for Jolene, and holy shit, is that hilarious.
I mean, you're just picking up, like, boxers.
Did you not go to talk to her when you were carrying it?
Well, you need to. You need to
The way
go
how
talk.
the way how she reacts is hilarious.
Yeah.
Because you're not supposed to. You talk to her beforehand to get the job, then she tells you to go to another person. Blah blah blah. If you go to her without going to the other person to drop off the shit, she literally has a mini freak out, which I found hilarious.
I didn't know
Chapter
that. I didn't, like, try to, like, stay around and find, like, be annoying and whatever.
Now on to Chapter 4. This is the lowest point in the entire game.
I think Chapter 2 is worse, but after careful consideration. But Chapter 4 is still terrible. I don't understand how someone can say this is their favorite chapter. Have they ever played a video game before?
People who say Chapter 4 is their favorite chapter clearly haven't played the game. You go back and forth the same path, how many times? 4 or 6?
It's not 6. It's, I think it's 5. 1 second, let me count in my head. Going back. It's 4.
Regardless, that's way too many times.
It's way too
Not to
many
mention-
times for the exact same path. Chapter 2 also did something similar, but it was like way less bad because it was less screens. Still terrible, but like at least there's like a reason. But like there's no reason they couldn't have just allowed you to get the P beforehand. See, I want to one day make a video about changes I would make to TTYD. And Chapter 4 has one of the biggest, where I would want them to change it so you can get the letter P beforehand, but you don't know his name. So, if you like don't know his name, but you have the letter P, you need to go and get Vivian. Which, by the way, I'm making it so you're forced to take the sewer to get back into the creepy steeple. Say, for example, Dupless locks the door to the front entrance. So you need to go down and get under with Vivian. So you'll be forced to grab Vivian no matter what.
But this also brings up an interesting question about Chapter 4. Why is there just a random question mark block on the stairs up to the creepy steeple? If you know what I'm
I don't know.
talking
I
about.
feel like it was a developer block, and just no one removed it.
I don't know if
because
they removed it in the remake. I haven't gone that far in the game yet.
It's still there.
Wow.
They didn't do anything with it. It
Not to
still
mention
only
the
has
whole
a singular
entire-
coin.
Not to mention the entire idea of the fact that Dupless has the power purely because no one knows his name. I wonder if that works in reality.
Yeah, no, it does not. I think Dupless is the best part of the chapter, but like that isn't saying much because there isn't much else to be good about the chapter.
I would say
Vivian
he's kind of
certainly isn't
hilarious.
winning any awards for just being an okay character.
He is written a bit funny.
He is really great. I love his design so much. I love his battle. Well, actually, no, that's not true. His battle sucks. He is the easiest fight in the entire game. Not even close.
Well, if you're thinking about easy fights, then we'll go over to Super. But we're not getting ahead of ourselves. Now on to Chapter 5. The Pirate one. We have Flavio. Enough said. Best chapter in the game, right?
I honestly would say it's almost the best. There isn't many good choices for best chapter in the game, but Chapter 5 is still good. You know what? I think I might like it more than Chapter 3. But that's only because Chapter 3 has some bad, like I said, it has some bad conditions, and I hate Grubba.
Fair point.
I love Cortez. Cortez is great. Also, I really like Bobbery. I mean, yeah, no shit. Bobbery's cool. He's a bad partner, but he's a great character in general.
Bobbery is cool, and he makes a good tank character, because I think he has the most amount of HP. Am I correct, Kirby?
Flurry is a better tank because she can heal herself.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah, Leblock pierces so she can infinitely heal herself if she has FP.
I do think that Bobbery is well written, not to mention, he's only really relevant in this chapter, and surprised he's one of the few characters that's actually relevant in a later chapter, being relevant in chapter 7.
I forgot that existed, but also, like, I don't like chapter 7. I don't look back on it as being,
well, we'll get to that in due time. Cortez is a really fun chapter boss, not to mention the fact that we have Lord Crump joining in on the mission with Mario as a spy. First of all, it's incredibly obvious just that Mario's oblivious.
My favorite joke, one of my favorite joke in the entire game is Crump just walking back to the screen and being like, hey, it's pretty obvious who I am, but like, don't tell Mario. And then he fucks off. It's so funny.
That fourth wall break was hilarious. I wish they did it more often. I mean, granted, It was only done in chapter 5, which just makes me wonder if that was just a split-second decision during the events of that chapter.
Well, no, because they did it in chapter 4, or like the cutscene right before chapter 4 or chapter 5, like after you put in the Ruby Star. That's what I'm saying. Because frankly asked you to like the people out in front of the TV to listen, and your partner's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah.
They do a lot of like, oh yeah, you in front of the TV, listen, idiot. In Thousand Year Door, they do a lot of that.
Onward to chapter 6, Pennington.
It's a mediocre chapter, except if you're playing it the first time, which it's one of the best.
Right.
The main issue of it is that there's like no gameplay at all.
It's more of like a point-and-click adventure.
Yes, which doesn't really work when you already have a million of those in the Peach interludes.
Right.
Most of the gameplay.
Some point-and-click adventures are fun, personally speaking. Wouldn't you agree on that, Kirby? But
I would agree, but I'm playing Paper Mario because I love the combat.
Fair point.
Not because I like walking around a train and talking to NPCs. Which again isn't the issue of the chapter itself. It's just an issue of making a chapter in a like battle focused game to be like non-replayable, because there really is no reason to replay the entirety of like chapter 6 if you're like going through the game again, because you're not learning it. You're not like figuring out the mystery. You're just waiting for the game to say, oh yeah, by the way, you can go to Riverside Station now. Have fun.
Right. Now,
Riverside Station.
Overall, the Grand Star being hidden in a museum behind the painting in the museum. It's like a really Russian doll. I thought that was a very funny twist.
Not to mention, Garnet Star, not Granite Star.
Damn it. Regardless, the fact that he also hidden in that same room with the Crystal Star is the L emblem. Is that correct? The one that makes you look like Luigi?
It's either that room or the first room. I think it is that room. I think the L emblem is in there.
Wait! Pennington.
I was just about to say, I think that's the reason he called him Luigi. They wanted to make a joke being like, oh yeah, by the way, you can become Luigi here.
I know, that's a really funny thing now that I think about it.
I hope that's the reason they put the L emblem there. If that's not the reason, fuck the developers. That's now the reason.
I'm confident that was the reasoning. Now, chapter 6, it was only really good for a first time run. All layer runs is sort of boring. Now on to the next chapter.
I mean, like, the thing is, Smorg, the best chapter boss of the game. It's really cool. Also really hard. So Smorg can beat your ass very easily if you don't buy a bunch of Fuji. Especially that fucking claw. That claw, the claw super guard is so hard.
How under-leveled were you?
I'm not under-leveled. I'm like, what do you mean under-leveled? You can't be under-leveled in TTYD.
You don't go back and grind?
No!
Not to mention, you hadn't done the Pit of 100 Trials at that point? Or at the very least half of it?
Oh, I did half of it.
For the expansion for your inventory, of course.
No, after every chapter, I go down 10 floors of the pit. Like, 10 more than the previous, that's what I'm saying. Like, prologue, it would be 10, and chapter 1, it would be 20. But
Yeah,
I
you
usually
can't
just go down to 20.
You can't go into a pit of 100 trials during prologue. The developers must have thought that we were pussies and couldn't handle it that early.
But anyways, I usually go down to, I think, 70? I think that's correct.
Yeah.
Yes, 70 when I finish chapter 6.
Now, on to chapter 7. The Exnaut Fortress itself. I believe this is the second time you get to fight the Exnauts in the game, correct?
Yes, because Crump barely counts.
Now, I'll let you take over for this chapter because I don't have much to say.
Okay. So what the fuck was going on with this chapter? Why did they think it would be really fun and cool to go back to the previous areas just to talk to, like, one singular NPC just to tell you, oh yeah, by the way, you have to go to a different area entirely. And, like,
That
why
entire
the fuck?
global fetch quest. That global fetch quest was annoying.
Yes,
Although-
which, like, I cannot even remember the order that you originally do it in, but continue talking.
First of all, this is the only other time when Bobbery actually matters. First of all, he mattered during the events of Chapter 5, then during the events of Chapter 7 when you reach the Russian town of Bob-ombs. You're Russian-Ukrainian, I can't tell which way, but I always did a Russian accent whenever I was playing him. The fact that Bobbery actually remembers the cannon being there, and the fact that the mayor ends up calling him not a true bomber for him being a pirate. Which I have to say, pirates are cool. But first things first, that's the one. Then you get sent on that world fetch quest. You get sent back to Petalburg. Then you get sent to the Glitz Pit. Then a tree. Then Twilight Town. Then that remote island.
No, I think,
And
no, it's
then-
actually, Petalburg, then Keel Hall Key, then Glitzville, then the Great Tree, then Twilight Town, then Far Outpost. What a fucking awful order for it to be in. Like, that
Why
is so
do a
much
world
walking.
tour?
That is so much walking around for fucking nothing. Like, did they not realize that means you need to go to Petalburg, then go to the next room with the blue pipes, then enter that one, then leave the sewers to go to Glitzville, then go back to the sewers to go into the Great Tree Pipe, then leave the sewers again just to fall back into the sewers for the Twilight Town. Like, what a fucking ass order. Why not just have it so it's like, okay, yeah, you have to go to the Great Tree before Glitzville, because then you don't need to leave the sewer multiple fucking times just to do this. It's so dumb. I hate this section of the game so much.
It's a real mix. It was a really poor decision if you think about it.
Like,
Really poor is an understatement.
I just hate the idea of going back to the previous areas, because guess what? TTYD does that so much. I don't need to go back to these areas again. Trust me. I was here like 5 times earlier. Especially with the troubles being so terrible.
Then you get put into a cannon and shot into the moon. NASA, you should be taking notes.
The moon is okay. I hate the slow movement, but T2ID is really good at unnecessary bullshit. But
Yeah.
overall, moon is cool. And the Exile Fortress is okay.
I have to say, I think it has the best theme in the series.
But yes, obviously, the X-Dot Fortress is a fucking bomb. But, like,
Right. Then you... First things
T2ID's
first,
music in general is just okay.
I have to say this. Lord Crump, you fight him at the end of your entire adventure through the Exnaut Fortress. Why didn't he bother to go over the announcement system for the facility and be like, hey Mario, I know you're here or some shit.
But
He was just hiding out there working on Magnus von Grapple 2.
I honestly, I would have rather had a Grotus battle here.
Yeah, but instead you fight Grotus in the Palace of Shadow.
Yes, I think I think fighting Grotus twice would have been better than him just being at the end of Palace of Shadow, which he's overshadowed by the Bowser battle. Like, what a stupid decision.
Not to mention, each of the crystal stars, we have the Diamond Star, the Emerald Star, the Gold Star, the Ruby Star, the Sapphire Star, the Granite Star,
Garnet.
and lastly, the Garnet Star, and lastly, the Crystal Star.
What a dumb fucking name. Like, why did they just make, like, the Amethyst Star? Like, seriously? I mean, even in, like, the menus of a TTYD remake, it's fucking purple. They colored it purple. Like, jeez, guys. The Crystal Star is such a boring name. And it's just a boring design also. It's just, like, a more clear Crystal Star with a bunch of, like, other colors in it, which is just stupid.
But now that you have all 7 crystal stars, you go back to Rogueport and you meet up with Dupless, frankly, and you open up the 1,000-year door.
And you open up the most disappointing chapter ever. For the final chapter, it's just
the Palace of Shadow.
It's just nothing. Nothing happens. For a chapter with 5 total bosses, like, it's really not that memorable.
Well, if you know what to do, you can do Palace Skip and skip through a majority of the chapter.
I mean, it's not like you're missing much. Let's be real.
Yeah.
The most memorable part of that chapter is the Shadow Queen and nothing else, which was an issue of N64 Bowser, but, like, the thing is, the original Bowser's Castle section is, like, way cooler than, I don't know, the entirety of the Palace of Shadow. I think about the Bowser stuff only became boring around when it stopped being like lava themed, where it started like the sushi puzzle Cooper, like all the stuff where you're just using the partners.
Right.
It's like it's still, like, boring, but it's miles better than Palace of Shadow. Like, that one fucking section, it was more like marble, like the stone section. I literally can't remember anything. I can't. It's so forgettable.
Overall, Shadow Queen as the final boss, even though she was possessing Peach's corpse. It was a really interesting final boss. Yeah.
It's hard if you're not basically cheating. Which, yeah, I'm not even gonna say it. Otherwise, I bought Power Weapons. I was cringe. That was my first playthrough of TTYD. I was cringe, but the thing is, I didn't want to continue playing the game. I really didn't like it.
Well, let's move on to Super then for a different game. Super Paper Mario. It was a unique twist, but to me, I would say it was a welcomed one. It had a weird overall style compared to the rest of the games. Count Bleck personally was my favorite villain. How about you, Kirby?
A unique twist, yes. I think the 2D gameplay could have been great. Because, like, if it was just, like, full-on, like, RPG, but you're playing a 2D platformer, then, like, it would be really cool. But, like, the game is just boring. Like, the 2D gameplay is okay at best.
Yeah,
not that great. I don't know why people say, oh yeah, I fucking love this game because of the gameplay. Bro, the gameplay, like, nothing. It's such nothing.
The bosses are so lackluster that you can die in like 20 seconds.
Yes, the bosses are terrible. They're so terrible. Like I've said on Twitter, Super Paper Mario has great bosses is the funniest joke of all. Because it is such a bad thing to say, you will get laughed at.
I have to say this. The characters in the game, they are really weirdly written. But overall, I would say the game has the best story of the series. But by having the best story, you know what that point brings up for you, Kirby?
I will say, I love the story. The story is cool. I think it's, like, the best story we've gotten for Paper Mario. That isn't saying much, because most of the games have pretty shit story. But, like, it's a good story. But, like, I cannot, for the life of me, say that Super Paper Mario is a good game at all. I think it's worse than Origami King. Which, fucking people get angry at me for saying that. But, like, I can say a ton of positives for Origami King. But I can say, like, 2 for Super. Which is, oh yeah, the characters are good and the story is good. Not much else. I don't like the soundtrack. The gameplay is not good. And the game is also very annoying. Again, they really liked TTYD, because they took a lot of the design choices from it, like being stupid when it comes to puzzles. For example, 5-1. I don't need to say more. People already know what I'm talking about. It's just so dumb.
Annoying block puzzle.
Which, another thing, the characters.
When I was a child, I had to write down that pattern.
Yeah, because, well, who the fuck didn't? That is such a long passcode.
Who thought that was a good idea?
And going back to a point I said earlier about
the
characters, going back to a point I said about the characters being good, I was not counting the pixels. The pixels are terrible.
2-dimensional.
They are
I guess
so
you could call them. I guess you could call all the pixels 2-dimensional.
No, I can't call them 2-dimensional because they don't have any personality. They're literally just Zelda items. That's all they are. They are not characters. They are literally just items you use to proceed, which is so boring. People saying that they are partners are delusional. A partner is not just, oh yeah, you're a thing I use to proceed. No, they're an actual character, which is why TTYD has such loved partners, because they are great characters.
The only pixel
still has great party members with personality. The pixels only talk once, and even then, they barely have any personality to them.
The only pixel that actually does have personality was Tippy.
Yes, but she's a main character. I cannot tell you a single thing about Carrie besides, oh yeah, she's the pixel that lets you walk over spikes. And that's it. There is nothing to these characters. The only one I remember entirely is Fudley. And that's only because he talks about girth. Like, he only just talks about your girth. And if you're playing as Bowser, he fucking's like, oh my god, you're so girthy. Let me join you. Which is funny. But, like, the pixels are so terrible. They're so boring. They're the worst partners in the series.
Now, how about Count Bleck's cast?
They're great. I like all of them. My favorite one is obviously Dimentio, but, like, that isn't much of a surprise. But I do think they're all great characters.
I have to say this. Count Bleck and Tippy's relationship is the backbone for the story. Yes. And people say it's a great love story. I don't know how, but I don't see it.
I mean, then again, you also did a very bad job paying attention during the interludes, but in general, they're just okay. Like, that whole plot is just fine.
I guess you're right. Maybe I should watch a Let's Play for the game's story.
Oh, yeah! Speaking of that, I will always argue this, but if you're going to go back through Super Paper Mario, I would just suggest watching a Let's Play. The gameplay isn't that great, and, like, watching a Let's Play just means you don't have to deal with the stupid bullshit. For example, you don't have to sit through the entire passcode. You can just hit the arrow keys and skip through it. Because guess what? You're not missing much. And, like, I will say this. I would want a sequel to Super. Not actual sequel, but, like, a game style like it. Because I want to see if they could actually get it right.
It had a good amount of potential, but they went nowhere with it. They didn't use it correctly. Is that what you're saying, Kirby?
Yes. Like, for example, the flip mechanic. Something so boring, it's barely used.
Yeah, not to mention, you take damage after using it for like 10 seconds unless you have Mario's capture card, or whatever they were called. Punch cards? No,
they are called capture cards.
Man.
Anyways, I don't like the idea of just making flipping only used for paths you can't see. Which is stupid, by the way. If I can't see them, then there's no reason for me to flip unless I know, like, okay, yeah, I'm at a dead end, and there's definitely a pathway going to the left or whatever.
But, like, really the only way how they advertised the game was the whole flipping gimmick.
Yeah, and it's barely used. It's used sometimes where it's, like, actually pretty cool. Like, I think it's 1-2, where when you flip, you can actually walk into the background of an area, background of the stage, which is cool. But like, in my opinion, the coolest way they ever did flipping was when you flipped into 3D to see something that you can't see normally. Not as in a pathway, but more like, for example, the opening to I think it's the third pillar. No, not the third pillar. The fourth pillar, where you are ground pounding the stakes. You don't know what orientation the stakes are supposed to be in unless you swap it in 3D. Because once you swap it in 3D, it shows like an arrow being like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be down, I'm supposed to be up. Which is like good. That's a great way of using flip. Instead of making it so you have to explore with it, it's more like you're using it to gather information.
Yeah, I would say that was a clever point. But I do have to say this. For a series known as Paper Mario, the paper gimmick really took a back seat during this game. It was more or less digital, which I have to say, quite shocking for 2007.
Yeah, it went more digital, which is cool because a lot of the character, like the main character designs, are really sick. I love Mimi's, Merlin's, and Nastasia's designs, but the enemies, no, the enemies and normal NPCs don't look that good. Right. Like we all get the joke where it's the what are they called? I think. One second, you continue talking while I look this up.
I do have to say this about Merlin. He was in the other Paper Mario games. He played a decent role during the events of 64. And when I say a decent role, I mean by he aimed you to, I believe, through the events of Chapter 1. Well, he aimed you to the direction of it. And Chapter 7. That was about it.
Yes,
I don't even remember what he did in TDYD.
Oh, he didn't do anything. He's not even a part of the actual game.
All he does is upgrade your party members.
Yes.
And finally in Super, he gets a moment in the spotlight joining the main cast.
Yes, which is actually really cool. I like Merlin being a main character.
I fully agree, Kirby.
Yes. I'm trying to still find the enemy that I'm thinking about.
The ones that look like JPEGs from Google Images?
No, they're like the white things that, like, stretch. Longator. The Longator. It's like two squares, and then there's like a line connecting the squares.
Longator.
Yeah. Let me show you this.
I would love to see it, Kirby.
There you go.
Oh my fucking god. I forgot about that character.
Yeah. Peak enemy design. This game has such great enemies. I know it, seriously. The enemies suck. The enemy design suck.
Kirby, I never said that game had peak enemy design.
No, I'm talking about people who actually say that.
Yeah, all I had to say was it had a unique enemy design. I never said if they were good, and I never said if they were bad.
It's like some of them are good, but like really the only enemies I liked looking at were the enemies who were not changed at all.
Right.
Actually, Squiglets, or whatever the fuck they're called, those guys look good. Those guys look really good. But other ones don't. Like the fucking Cursias, they look like shit.
Right.
The Ninjos are good though. But that's really it. There's not that many great enemy designs in Super.
I guess that's all for Super, and there's not really a whole lot about the Mario trilogy because I haven't really played them yet.
Yes, exactly. If Tech had played them, we definitely would have talked about them more.
Maybe when I get around to playing them, we might do a part 2 to this. That'd be fun, wouldn't you say, Kirby?
I would say so, especially because there'd be a lot to discuss.
I played quite a bit of Sticker Star and a bit of Origami King. Yeah, I have yet to... Yeah, I don't have a copy of Color Splash.
Yeah. I'm actually very surprised you just didn't even buy it.
It's Color Splash.
I know, but this was before we even knew it was bad. I bought it when it released.
That's some money you're never getting back.
Hey, I enjoyed myself for when I played. I enjoyed it, not in a way of like, oh my god, this game is super fun, but more it's like, yay, I'm playing Mario. Because yes, there was a point in my life where I enjoyed Super, and that was around the time I played Color Splash. Actually, I think I played Color Splash first.
I guess Paper Mario series really has been going downhill lately. Yet there are some better RPGs than Nintendo has. Pokemon, and especially Mario and Luigi.
Oh yeah, Mario and Luigi's peak.
I guess that series but that series is finally coming back after being dormant since 2019.
No. 2015.
Oh, you're right.
Paper Jam came out in
20years.
2015, which is very sad that we haven't had a game in so long. I hope Brothership is good.
But this podcast is about Paper Mario. I guess that's all of our real opinions on the series.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, this has been Tech and Kirby signing off for the night. Bye.
See ya.